Hello, one and all. Jasper here, joined once again with DJ Fella to talk about the latest episode of HotD number 9. And oh boy, I think you and I are going to have a lot of fun discussing episode 9.
Yeah, I have quite a bit to say about this episode.
It's such a nosedive from especially the previous episode, which I consider to be the best one of the series so far.
Yeah, I can't confidently say this is the worst episode of the show, but it definitely considerably worse than last episode.
I mean, I wouldn't bet money or my life on it, but I think this is the worst episode. I might, when I go through a rewatch, when I make my series, review as a whole, I might change my mind. But oh boy. And the worst part is, in the other episodes that I'm not a huge fan of, it was real good stuff with just a nugget of shit. Whereas this episode was just kind of meandering, I felt, and it also had a massive pile of shit.
I don't know that I would say it was meandering, although now that I think about it, I can see some aspects of that. It just mostly felt inconsistent to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, if that's the case, I think we obviously need to stop pulling everyone's leg and jump right on into the episode. Mm-hmm. Which, of course, we have the kind of young boy finding about the king's death and notifying one of the, I'm assuming handmaidens, whatever kind of title it may be, who notifies Alicent.
So real quick on the kid, he's originally coming out of the king's room, right?
I believe so.
So who the fuck is this kid? What's his role as a servant that he was in the king's room in the middle of the night?
Maybe he was the bedpan cleaner.
And then follow-up questioning, why is there no fucking Kingsguard outside the king's room?
That's a good point. There always should be at least one Kingsguard member at all times.
Yeah, these useless pieces of shit just seem to disappear anytime their presence would inconvenience the plot.
There are some moments when Kingsguard aren't around, but that's only when all 7 of them get together to have a meeting, and usually there's still other guards who take their place when these meetings take place. So, yeah, you're right. But with that, Alicent is eventually notified about the whole situation, and I just realized I need to actually mute this video. So everyone is starting to kind of be notified about the whole situation, one person after another. Alicent notifies Otto. And
right.
And so luckily, I still stand by that I can ignore the terrible scene of the deathbed confusion from the previous episode and just lie to myself saying, oh no, she's just bullshitting. Viserys never, changed his mind. Or she never misinterpreted that. She's just a whore.
Except for they really want you to think that she believes what she's saying, because I guess in their minds they're trying to make her not as bad. I don't understand. Okay, I think we can both agree, outside of trying to ignore that scene exists, that Alicent legitimately believes that Viserys was saying he wants Aegon to be king.
Which is questionable, but yes.
Which is fucking crazy. Where did she get that idea?
I mean, he said Aegon and crown. Unite the realm. Up to you.
Oh, did he say Aegon?
Yeah, because he was originally talking Aegon the First.
Right, he's talking about Aegon the Conqueror.
Yeah. I still think that to believe or understand anything he's saying in this drugged up, on death's door, deathbed confession, nah. it's definitely a bit of like she wants to hear it, and I think that you could like twist it that way. But no, I prefer to just forget about it, and because she already I felt like had a decently strong motivation in wanting to keep her children alive and fearing that Rhaenyra would kill them, especially with her being married to Daemon. Because Daemon, motherfucker, kills his own wife and whatnot. Granted, she doesn't know that, but nobody has a good opinion on Daemon. I'd fear for my kids as well in the same situation. So this whole kind of like change just feels pointless and in a way empty.
It's retarded. I fucking hate it. I fucking hate Alicent's motivation in this entire episode.
Mm-hmm.
That's based on the king, like a completely out of nowhere coincidence thing the king said, thinking he was talking to someone else. Gross.
And saying it in just the right way to where it can be misinterpreted. Because if he said Aegon the Conqueror, then okay, she figures it out. But no, he specifically just says Aegon.
Yeah, and you know what? Thinking back on it, pretty much every other time he's talking to someone in that episode, he like says their name. Like anytime there was a misunderstanding, like when Rhaenyra first shows up and he thinks she's Alicent. Except for the last one, where it's convenient for him to not mention that he thinks he's talking to Rhaenyra.
But with that, we do get a little bit of Alicent and Otto like talking, and it seems like Alicent's trying to convince Otto that the king really did change his mind. And I feel like Otto's all like, bullshit, but we'll go with it.
I mean, yeah. I think that's what like everybody who's on her side thinks.
But with that, we get a small council meeting, which is nice. You know, I know you think there might be a bit too many, but I always like these little meetings.
I mean, I thought there was too many early on, but now I appreciate the small council meetings.
All right.
I still would very much like to know what the fuck is up with these balls.
So, I actually think I have an idea. Those are medieval fidget spinners. They're just like a little...
They do fidget with it.
They're just like a little toy that they like spin in the... Like, you know, like the old-fashioned mouses? The ball in an old-fashioned mouse?
Yeah.
Just like that. You just play with it.
I was thinking that they might be intended to bash people's heads against in order to kill them.
I don't know why you would assume that.
Yeah, I was just a random thought that popped in my head.
Okay. But with that, we get the small council meeting. Alicent pretty much says the king is dead, and he's named Aegon as his heir on his deathbed. And I do kind of enjoy how like most everyone's just like, cool, sure, we believe that. Which, it's obviously, I feel like they don't, but it's because they were on Team Green for a while, and like, okay, yeah, that's what we're going with, sure.
Yeah, they're like, all right, plans continue as if nothing changed then.
However, there is one exception to this situation, and that is Lord Beesbury. As he is...
More like Lord Basebury.
The only man to voice his disagreement with this situation. And, you know, we obviously...
Not the only man.
Oh, are you talking about the Lord Commander?
I am.
That's half-assed disagreement.
Yeah, he doesn't, you know, he doesn't go as hard, but yeah, Beesbury definitely like calls them all out and goes all in.
Yeah, and so because of this, Kristen Cole comes over, seizes him, and I feel like they were trying to paint this like as an accidental death, but
yeah,
but no, I feel like it's more difficult to accidentally kill someone like that than to purposefully kill them like that.
Yeah, like he wasn't pushing him like you would push someone to get them to sit down into their chair. He was pushing him face first into the table.
Yeah, it's and this is a change from the book that I'm not a fan of, because there's three things that could have happened in the book. The first is Otto Hightower has some guards take him away to the dungeon, and Beesbury dies in there. The other two stories, which I'm more of a fan of, is Kristen Cole forcing Beesbury into a seat and then slitting his throat with a dagger. And the third one, according to Mushroom, is Kristen just throws the fucker out a window.
Yeah, because what purpose does making the murder look like an accident serve at this point?
I do not know, but here's the thing. I was about to, forgive and forget that once I saw the Lord Commander draw his sword. And I was just like, my prediction is coming true. They're going to fight, and Kristen is going to kill the previous Lord Commander, thus getting the title himself. But, no. That nothing comes from it.
Yeah.
He draws...
I mean, I guess we see that the Lord Commander isn't, on their side.
Yeah, which I'm not going to pretend like he was an amazing character in the books, because he wasn't. He dies of old age before any of this shit starts. So it baffles my mind why they kept him around and even casted a fairly prolific actor as him. I'm sure they got plans for him for the future, but I just can't help but wonder why. And I'm worried. This is like Leonor levels of worry. Not quite Leonor. Leonor's a bit of a larger headache, but this just seems like a useless change and might kind of gunk up things in the future.
Speaking of Leonor, I meant to ask last episode. They have not made any mention as to what's going on with Leonor's dragon.
No, none at all.
Because, if the dragon won't take a new rider, then that would be a pretty obvious indicator that Leonor faked his death.
Well, at this point, there aren't quite enough Targaryens or Valerians with Targaryen blood around to claim all the dragons that are available.
What about the Daemon's daughter that doesn't have a dragon?
I think that's a thing that I need a bit of a reminder on. I didn't do as much research as I probably should in regards to her, but she might have her own dragon in a book. And so she has yet to claim that specific one. But even then, including Leonor, there are still other dragons that have yet to be claimed by any Targaryens.
Yeah, but that's a full-ass grown dragon.
Mm-hmm. There are some other big honkers, I think.
Are there?
Yeah. They haven't really delved into all the available dragons that one could possibly mount, but there are a handful at the very least.
I wish they would delve into that.
Right?
I was basically working under the assumption that aside from Vhagar, all the big dragons had riders.
No, there are definitely some just kind of sitting and waiting.
Because that's kind of important information.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well then, moving on.
All right. So yeah, so we get cucked from a fight, which is annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have been better than the other fight we got between two Kingsguard, which made no fucking sense.
I'm not willing to say that made no sense, but we can talk about it more
once we get there. Okay, but this kind of continues on a bit, nothing too crazy to talk about. It seems the only thing probably of note is Alicent voicing her reluctance or non-willing to plan for the death of Rhaenyra and her children.
Which, again, this feels like a regression of her character. I thought the whole point of that scene where she stabs Rhaenyra is to, establish, she's willing to do what it takes to make sure her children are safe.
Yeah, but they had a nice table, and they ate, and they were best friends.
If I'm legitimately supposed to believe that Rhaenyra toasting to her changed her mind, then I really hope they're not trying to convince me that.
You see, that's why I just pretend that, she never was swayed, and this was always the intention, and it wasn't some bullshit Viserys deathbed talk.
You can't pretend that anymore because she's acting like she doesn't want to kill Rhaenyra the entire episode. You can't gaslight yourself. Alicent can gaslight herself. They show that very clearly in this episode, that she gaslights herself.
Listen
but
here.
You cannot.
Listen here, bitch. Just let me enjoy my copium, all right? I am trying to dig out what little good I can from this episode. But you are correct. I would say that her, like, kind of slashing at the arm, her being in that state of kind of, like, not entirely grief, but, like, mama bear situation, isn't exactly a proper correlation to her state of mind and being at this current moment.
I mean, the issue is the scene afterwards where she's talking with Otto, and he's like, "Oh, I see now that you are willing to do what it takes." I mean, I guess now we're supposed to just assume Otto was wrong. Otto completely misread the whole situation and just said that, and that line meant nothing.
Yeah, she's kind of ping-ponging back and forth.
She ping-pongs like a motherfucker. At the end of the episode, she does one of the biggest fucking 180s I have ever seen. It is insane.
At the end, really?
At the end.
Okay, well, we can get into that later, because I feel like that scene's probably going to be taking up most of our time. Only other thing probably to mention in this is when the Lord Commander... I can't remember, I think it's Harless? I can't remember, but I know he's like a Westerling. Anyways, he dismisses himself. He resigns from the position of Kingsguard. Now, this, as a book reader, upsets me. Because, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure no Kingsguard member had ever just retired and left. The only exception would be Barristan Selmy, which is like 100 years later. And that was a big, like, what the fuck, don't do that scandal stupidity. So it seems really weird that this guy's just able to take his cloak off and walk out of here, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what their plans for the character are, but I think it would make more sense for him to basically be like, I'm not going with your guys' coup plan. I'm going to go guard the rightful heir. Like, that would make sense, but to just be like, no king, no Kingsguard, I'm out. That's kind of weird.
Maybe that's his clever way of not being executed, and he still intends to go to Rhaenyra. I still think it would have been better to have Cole kill him. But who knows?
It's possible. It's certainly possible that would have been the better solution here.
Maybe the writers will prove me wrong. Anyways, we get a little bit of everyone kind of looking for Aegon, because Aegon's a piece of shit. Shirking his duties, all that good stuff. So then we have Otto going to Eric, and God, I don't know if you noticed, but you know how...
Before we get to Otto going to Eric...
Oh, really?
The Aegon's wife...
Helena.
Says the line, "There's a beast beneath the boards," which I think this is the second time she said that. I think she said it at the dinner or something. But it sounded familiar. Either way, please, God, tell me that this is not supposed to be foreshadowing for the end of the episode.
It seems like a good assumption.
Like, she says there's a beast beneath the boards, and then at the end of the episode, Dragon pops out of the floor, and we're like, oh, she knew the whole time.
Green Seers. Can't trust them. They're too mumble-jumbo.
So then moving on, Otto goes to the twins.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you remember their names?
Nope.
So the one of them is Eric, and the other one is Eric.
I was assuming that was their last name.
Nope. One is Eric with an E, the other is Eric with an A.
Why? Is that canon in the books too?
Yeah, that's in the books.
Does George hate people understanding who characters are?
But the best part is, of course, he gives this to twins.
Yeah. I mean, It's ridiculous. No one would name their kid twins that way. That's that's preposterous.
I mean, I don't know. It's like naming one kid John, Jon, and the other King John, John.
Yeah, no. No one it like naming two of your kids like that would be one thing, but naming twins like that? No way. It's not happening.
I'm guessing.
George is on crack.
With that said, and I noticed, like, after we, like, really get introduced to the Kingsguard twins, but there are a lot of twins just, like, in this setting of the time. Because we have Eric and Eric. We have the Valerion daughters, Damon's kids. We have the two...
The Damon kids, I think, are not twins in the show, though.
True. I think, I do think you are correct, because I think both the children and the adult versions are going to be played by different actresses, like two separate people, whereas I think the Lannisters and the Erics are played by the same actor.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, so you got those three pairs so far, and also Aegon and Helena's children, they have a pair of twins as well.
Wow. Yeah, 4 twins is a lot of twins to be relevant in a story at one time.
Mm-hmm. But that's enough, like, book snobbery. We see Otto go to Eric in order to tell him to go get Aegon, and Eric says, I don't know where he is. The guy exploits his authority, telling me to go away, and then he just fucks off. Which, I don't know how good of an excuse that is, but that's always kind of like a finicky situation.
I find this whole race they're setting up between Otto and the Queen hilarious, because the Aegon's entire life they have not managed to get him to do what the fuck they want him to. So what makes them think here at the last moment whoever finds him first is going to like suddenly get him to do what they want?
Yeah. And then we see Rhaenys kind of waking up, but nothing really happens with that till later. We see the guards lock away all the servants in order to keep, I'm assuming... Actually, you know what? Why do you think they're locking up all these servants?
I mean, I assume to keep news out from getting out.
Okay. That is correct. I have an issue with that, though. Maybe I'm, like, misinterpreting the episode, but it seems like all of this happens, from the beginning to the end, happens in, like, a day. Couple of hours. A day at most, you know?
Yes. Yeah, I think the naming of the king ceremony at the end is the next day.
Okay.
So it takes place over, like, a day and a half.
Okay. In that case, maybe it's more justified. Because, like, in the books, it's, like, several days that they're using, like, every day they can to, like, make sure they're preparing before Rhaenyra hears about the death of Viserys. And it gets so bad, they just leave Viserys in his room, and he just becomes, like, a rotted, bloated mess. Until finally, like, people just start asking so many questions, like, alright, too late, we have to announce his death.
That would make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. But if this is the case, it happening, like, just in a day and a half, a part of me thinks, like, what's the point in locking them up if you plan on coronating Aegon and announcing to the world the very next day?
Yeah, like, that's gonna happen before Rhaenyra hears about it either way.
Mm-hmm. And obviously...
Actually, how far is Dragonstone?
Dragonstone is not far at all.
Yeah, it's less than a day away. And then she could be, like, she's probably less than an hour away by dragon.
Mm-hmm.
There might be some justification there.
I mean, I can understand kind of, like, keeping things secret, but they really seem to have rushed the whole Aegon coronation, which is a bona fide way to make sure that Rhaenyra hears about this.
Right. But I guess in their mind, once Aegon is, announced king, they're in a much stronger spot.
I guess maybe propaganda-wise, but not really.
Yeah.
Alright. But the next scene, we have Kristen coming to Alicent, telling they can't find Aegon, and, Alicent sends Kristen off to look for him, and Aemond decides to join him.
So how did Cole know what Otto was doing? Like, I thought Otto was kind of doing all that stuff in secret. But then Cole comes in and he's like, hey, I know exactly what your dad's up to.
Yeah. Because we don't see, like, Kristen happening to be, like, behind a corner listening in. There were some other guards around, but yeah, that news kind of got to him really fast, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely more of a nitpick, but just something that I noticed.
Well, Eric did go get his brother to help him look, so maybe, like, because they're all Kingsguard members, they told Kristen?
I don't think they would tell Kristen. I felt like Otto was pretty clear about him not fucking telling anyone.
It was definitely
But
heavily implied.
I guess I could see Cole passing by them. I don't know. I don't know how Cole knows, but he does. So.
Oh, okay. I have a bullshit justification. I'm doing the writer's job here. So maybe, as a member of the Kingsguard, he's just trying to notify all the Kingsguard members about, what's going on here. He can't find Eric or Eric, though. And so when he asks around, he just hears, last I saw him, he was talking with Otto. And then, boom, Otto sent them to go find Aegon.
Maybe so.
I mean, again...
And again, this whole race just seems kind of silly to me.
And pointless.
Also, that we could throw as many synonyms out as we want.
Mm-hmm. But with that, Kristen and Aemond are pairing up together in order to find Aegon. And we see the stereotypical, sneaky hood that makes you completely conspicuous. Though,
yeah, we get a lot of those this episode.
Though, to be fair, it makes sense that a Valyrian would wear them, to hide, like, their very snow white hair and whatnot, because it's a very defining feature. I mean, you see that, you almost know, like, there's royalty.
Yeah, and Cole's just wearing a hat.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have his hood up.
Yeah, but that's because he's not a Valyrian.
That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, everyone else keeps their hoods up. Actually, you know what? The twins don't, do they? They just walk around not in their armor.
Yeah, which is like an interesting point. I understand they're not Valyrians, but the Kingsguard, I would imagine, is fairly famous. So you would probably...
Yeah, but you gotta think, they don't have, like, any way to see pictures of these people, like common folk don't. You just see them at a distance, like, walking by in a parade or something.
Mm-hmm. A part of me wonders, like, if you see, like, a pair of twins, and you know that they're, like, asking questions, especially, and you know that there's this famous two brothers who are Kingsguard members. I mean, what are the odds of someone... Well, I guess there are 4 pairs of twins in this whole series right now, so maybe twins are just more common than I think.
Yeah, maybe there's tons of twins in King's Landing.
Dozens, hundreds, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. So they ask the owner of this fine establishment where Aegon is, and she says, not fucking here. She recognized Aemond, which, of course, motherfucker has an eye patch.
Which, this scene has one extremely important line. Cole outs himself. He outs himself as a simp. Every woman is the image of the mother to be spoken of with reverence. Come on, Cole.
This is coming from the same guy who called Rhaenyra a cunt.
Right?
Yeah, bitches don't count.
That. I know you don't believe that, Cole.
He's just a very devoted individual.
Right.
But then we get to see Otto standing before the Iron Throne and telling any local nobility, it seems, who are in King's Landing about the whole situation. And it's like, alright, make sure you start swearing your oaths. And, like, a good third of them kind of start taking the knee. Everyone else is kind of standing. One goes, I need to go talk to someone real fast. I need to talk to my family. And
so is this the normal number of lords that are in King's Landing at any time?
Possibly.
Because, like, they obviously haven't had time to, like, gather these lords from across the country. So
no.
I guess these lords were just chilling in King's Landing.
Yeah. because each region, there's 9 regions in Westeros. I'd imagine like all of these nobility are lords of the Crown Lands, which is ruled directly by King's Landing and the Targaryens. So none of these guys are like Lannisters or Starks or Tyrells. They're like probably at most High Lords.
What about the dude that tries to leave?
Uh,
He seemed more important, but maybe not.
which dude that tries to leave? The first one or the second one?
The first one.
Okay. Does he say his house name? He says he wants to go talk to his house, and then he comes back and says he's no Oathbreaker. But I don't think he says the name of his family.
Yeah, I just assumed you'd recognize these people by their faces. You read the book, and then you know what their face looks like.
Oh yeah, just look at Corley's.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, nope, don't recognize. Don't even see really any obvious sigils or insignias on them. Plus, the Crown Lands are like the most boring.
What about the woman?
The woman, she does say the name, House Fell.
Yeah, House Fell. She does.
A wiki of
Is
ice.
House
and
Fell
fire.
unimportant?
House Fell of Fellwood is a noble house sworn to Storm's End? So that's a Stormlands
Why is that
house.
shocking?
Well, because the Stormlands isn't in the Crown Lands. So I guess maybe this bitch was just unlucky and in King's Landing at the wrong time.
Oh, so you're thinking these are just lords of land within, like, the King's Landing area?
Yeah, because there's 9 regions in Westeros. You got, I'm not going to name them all, but the Crown Lands is what Aegon the Conqueror cut out for himself to kind of rule directly.
Right.
And so I thought that all these would be part of the nobility of the Crown Lands. But this isn't a big deal. King's Landing is the capital, so it's not crazy that other nobility would be in the area at the time.
Right. And then the bald guy takes a knee.
Yes, a fake knee.
A fake knee. I didn't know you were allowed to do that. I thought taking a knee was like a no takes backies.
I mean, it depends on who you talk to. Balon Greyjoy said, "A man who takes a knee is able to rise again with knife in hand, whereas a man who doesn't dies stiff knees and all."
Word.
But yeah, so these two keep their oaths and are thus, I'm assuming, possibly executed, but maybe just thrown into the dungeon?
I was assuming executed as well, but when we see bald guy hanging later, he's hanging alone.
Mm-hmm. No others around him.
So it seems like he might have been the only one that they immediately killed.
Mm-hmm. So we eventually get back to like the search for Aegon. Don't feel like there's a whole lot to go over it right at this moment, at least not until I skip it. Ah, right, the children fight where they file their teeth and nails and shit.
Yeah, I gotta say, this children fighting pit might be the most fucked up thing we've seen, like, in this world. Like, this is messed up. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I might have to listen to the book again, but I feel like this is mentioned, but I don't remember them saying children or along those lines. It might have been a different word that kind of meant child or whatever, but yeah, this is probably one of the more fucked up things. And because Aegon frequents this area, he's just the worst. He's
real bad. He's getting less and less Joffrey light and more just Joffrey 1.0.
Yeah. You mean 2.0? Well, no, he came before Joffrey.
1.0. Yeah. I thought it through.
Yeah, and I'm very disappointed at it because, like, I was kind of hoping for the more sympathetic Aegon. Because this is the guy who, when he first heard about him being named king, he said, like, nah, my sister's the heir. What kind of brother takes his sister's crown? And only when, like, Kristen Cole and Allison tell him that if Rhaenyra takes the throne, she will reward his loyalty by killing him, his brother, and his children. And so it's sad that they make Aegon just the worst. Just a piece of shit. And also, it's weird. He's a terrible human being that doesn't want absolute power.
Well, I guess he acknowledges that absolute power does not come with absolute freedom. But I think at the end of the episode, we're going to see that he likes it when he gets a taste of power.
Maybe.
I don't think he's going to be as against being king in the next episode as he is in this episode.
Oh, yeah. And there are definitely some hints towards that. But anyways, we see the bald individual getting ready to quote-unquote sneak out.
Yeah, sneak out through the front gate, like you do.
I'm surprised he got as far as he did.
Yeah, and he's looking guilty as hell the whole time.
Just like, don't notice me, don't notice me, don't notice me.
Yeah, glancing around.
We also, as we're kind of jumping back and forth between that and the search for Aegon, they do kind of use all these like despicable aspects of Aegon to seem to kind of like set a bit of a wedge between the two brothers, saying like, look at this shit. Do you really think Aegon should be king if he's into this shit?
Yeah, Aemond doesn't like his brother and also wants to be king. So, that's a little bit of conflict there, I guess.
Well, no, I'm talking about Eric and Eric.
Oh, yeah. Also, those brothers have some conflict. Which I don't... Which Eric is the one that's supposed to be guarding Aegon?
Does it matter?
Yes, because one of them... Is the Eric that guards Aegon the one that, doesn't help?
I think so. No, I think the one that guards Aegon is the one that doesn't help.
That's what I said.
Okay. You know what? I just realized to tell the difference between these two, you need the subtitles, I think.
Well, they do have different beards. Their facial hair is different. But it's not different enough for me to, like, remember which is which.
Yeah, I feel like
It's like one of them has more of a mustache.
I was going to say one of them has a bit more of, like, the spin, handlebar.
Yeah, he has the twirled stash, and it's, like, separated from his beard.
Uh-huh. Now, with that, getting back to the bald guy getting arrested,
Whoa! We're not quite to the bald guy getting arrested. The twins are still in the fighting pit.
Yes, and they're approached by servant to the White Worm.
Yeah, and she's like, "Hey, you need to bring Otto to meet with the White Worm."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, I don't know if Otto is gonna want to, put his coup on hold to come meet with some owner of a whorehouse, no matter how well informed she is.
Well,
he's a little bit fucking busy.
Well, the two are already fairly well acquainted, to the point where, like, some of her servants and whatnot are able to deliver messages to Otto directly.
I know, they did show us that, but I'm still like he's in the middle of a coup. He doesn't really have time to be wandering down to Flea Bottom.
With that said, Aegon is a high priority.
Aegon is a high priority. I do understand that. But again, it doesn't fucking matter who finds Aegon.
That's the other thing. Yeah. But that's the thing. They have this whole race between the two. And I guess I understand it somewhat. Alicent wants to get to Aegon first so she can tell him, don't kill your sister and her children. Otto wants to get to him first so he can say, do kill your sister and your children. But...
And it doesn't matter at all because Aegon's going to do whatever the fuck he wants, like he always has.
But now, getting to the topic of the bald guy getting captured, we see that it was obviously due to Larry Strong, who informed on the situation. Nothing too great, but then him and Otto share a few words. And he's pretty much like, the fuck you doing with my daughter?
Kind of. Which I gotta say, this bald bastard sucks at lying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he kind of half-ass lies for a second, and then just, like,
Gives up.
when they ask him a second question, and he just goes completely silent.
Yeah, like say...
Bro, keep lying.
Like say, I was going to go to my family to raise troops. War's coming.
That's exactly... Or, not even to raise troops, but just, like the king died. Like, this, I gotta go start preparing.
Like, obviously, they wouldn't...
Transition of power.
They wouldn't believe it. He was a dead man. So either lie, like, keep lying, or just say, fuck you guys.
Yeah.
Now, so, like, so pretty much Otto, like, tells Larry's, like, what are you doing with my daughter? And he's just like, don't worry about it. It's benefiting you, too.
Yeah, which... I find it kind of weird that Otto doesn't know what their relationship is. Or at least have some idea.
I think he has his assumptions, but honestly, who would guess that? Well, then again, there were people on Reddit who figured it out before, and I was just like, oh, yeah, this is a funny meme. Ha, ha, what? So I don't know if, like, it was a leak that I just wasn't aware about, that everyone knew about, or if people legit were able to put two and two together, but I was genuinely quite surprised about that whole reveal.
I was surprised by it as well, and disturbed.
It seems like such a weird thing to add. Like, does he have a foot fetish because his own feet are fucked up?
That seemed to be the implication, the way the scene was shot. But we can talk about that more when we get to it.
Yeah. The next scene, we see Viserys is being paired for the funeral, and we see Alicent crying. And I think you can interpret this a few ways, but I personally took it as she did genuinely have feelings for Viserys. Not the strongest by any means, but, there was some connection between the two.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Which we get, like, a top-down shot of him when he has the crown sitting on his chest.
Mm-hmm.
That crown is freaking oblong. Like, thinking back, I've never seen a real crown top-down like that. But are they really that fucking oval?
Well, you have to think, they gotta fit our heads, and heads aren't often that circular.
Heads aren't often that circular, but they're also, I don't think, that often that fucking long. It's a long-ass crown.
Maybe Viserys had a long-ass head.
My baseball caps are pretty round.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
Because I'm sure that has to be the same crown he's been wearing, like, as the actor, because it would make no sense to have two different ones.
Yeah, maybe the actor's just got long. And, like, when they wear the crown, they do wear it, like, pretty far back on their head, so I could see that adding some length to it. But I don't know, it looks really long.
But then, the very next scene, we get Rhaenys and Alicent having a little back and forth. So obviously, this is Alicent attempting to get Rhaenys on her side, just because Rhaenys is a powerful dragon rider. You, of course, want more dragon riders in a civil war that's about to happen where there's a lot of dragon riders.
Yeah. And she seems to think that having Rhaenys on her side would be enough to keep Rhaenyra from going to war.
Which I doubt. I'm not discrediting Rhaenys being a very powerful asset and ally. She is. Like I said in previous episodes, at the time, she was one of the few people who had a chance of probably besting Daemon in Dragonfight. I'd still put my money on Daemon, but she was the only one. Now you have Aemond, who's probably the most dangerous being around.
Uh-huh.
But that's because of fucking Vhagar. But Alicent, so she's definitely, like, I feel like she's trying to, like, play to Rhaenys' rage, talking about, like, all the injustices, especially mentioning her son being cuckolded.
Yeah. Yeah, she plays this scene pretty smart, the way she goes about it.
Mm-hmm.
But Rhaenys is not easily manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
She's been around a minute or two.
Yeah. And there's like a lot of different kind of aspects to this, because obviously, let's say that she even did change her, like decide to side with the Greens. Her granddaughters are being taken care of by the Blacks. So there's the whole like family motive as well. Like, it seems difficult to trying to convince her to stay, but at the same time, what else is Alicent gonna do? I guess she could just lock the bitch up.
Which, I mean, she still does. I mean, not in a dungeon, but she does keep her locked in her room.
Yeah, and it's only because of the betrayal of a Kingsguard member she gets out. So, it doesn't make Alicent look completely stupid or anything along those lines.
Yeah. Which I thought the end of this scene was kind of weird, where Rhaenys, like, insults Alicent for helping a man get on the Iron Throne instead of trying to take it for herself. But I'm like, Alicent has never even been a contender for the Iron Throne.
Yeah,
like,
that's not.
Why would she want it?
That's not how inheritance works.
Yeah, like there is nothing Alicent could have possibly done to get the Iron Throne.
Just because
what a ridiculous accusation.
Just because you thought your dumbass had a claim to Driftmark doesn't mean Alicent has a claim to the Iron Throne. That's not how it works.
She legitimately believes that the wife can just, take over whatever.
If even Daemon couldn't get Ruinstone, then I don't know what the fuck these bitches are on about.
Right?
But yeah, so yeah, that kind of lasts a little bit, probably sours the whole scene in general. The more we talk about this episode.
Yeah. This scene is my favorite scene in the episode.
And it's still kind of shit.
That's just it just kind of doesn't stick the landing. Is my only issue with this scene.
You jumped from the plane, but you gotta pull the chute.
Yeah.
All right. So now, luckily for Aemond and Kristen, they happen to see the Cargill twins. I'm just going to stick with calling them the Erics, and Otto meeting with the White Worm.
Lucky,
them.
I don't think quite does it service.
Yeah, because King's Landing is big.
Yeah, so think about it this way. Cole and Aemon decided to wander Flea Bottom aimlessly all fucking day. Mm-hmm. While the twins visited the fighting pit, followed some random chick to God only knows where they presumably met with the White Worm, and she told them that she needs to talk to Otto or something, returned to King's Landing, and somehow convinced Otto to follow them to Flea Bottom to meet with the owner of a whorehouse, and then wandered all the way back to Flea Bottom and met with her. All this time, Cole and Aemond are just wandering Flea Bottom aimlessly, and then they happen to see them meeting.
Indeed. Now, to be fair, Flea Bottom is just a chunk of King's Landing. It's not like Flea Bottom is everything below the Red Keep.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm trying to kind of recall how big Flea Bottom is, because it's not like a block. Is it? It might be a street, though I feel like if it's a street, that's still crazy.
I assumed it was like a whole neighborhood, kind of.
Yeah, Flea Bottom is the poorest slum in King's Landing.
That doesn't really tell us how big it is, though.
Flea Bottom is a downtrodden area of town.
I don't know if you're going to be able to find an exact size.
It
seems like the kind of thing that would be kept vague.
Yeah. George R. Martin is willing to give bullshit sizes to castles, but not Flea Bottom, I guess.
I mean, my assumption is King's Landing's a pretty big city. It would have a pretty big slum.
Yeah, probably. Anyways, coincidence be damned. They see them.
Yeah.
And we get the meeting between the White Worm and Otto. And pretty much the deal is, obviously, she says she wants those fighting pits done when Aegon takes the throne. And,
right.
Bitch, she obviously is a very informed individual. So, one could make the assumption that she is informed that Aegon frequents those events.
Yeah.
Why would she trust the Greens to end them when the person they're aiming to put on the throne enjoys
Participates in them, yeah.
Like,
has literally contributed fighters to them.
By his own seed, it seems.
By his own seed. And I have to say, if a Yee show means a whole cast of characters talking with this horrible accent, then I'll pass on that one.
Right?
Like her accent, it just doesn't. I don't like it. I don't like her accent.
I'm not going to say it's fake or it sounds wrong, because this is a fictional culture and people. Who knows how they actually talk. But I will say it's not pleasant to hear.
It's not pleasant to hear.
But with that all squared away, I feel like that's like not a whole lot to go. And I will say it makes like a little bit of sense to kind of like play with the Greens a bit, because she lives in King's Landing and the Greens pretty much control King's Landing. So maybe, who knows, if the Blacks ever take over, maybe she'll play with the Blacks. Maybe she'll play kind of both sides, just trying to get her goals and what she wants.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't seem like she's going to have much loyalty to either side.
Yeah, she's being played up as kind of like the people person, the downtrodden, the small folk kind of individual.
Yeah. The other thing about her request seems kind of small. Like, you are handing them the king on a platter, basically. Like, ask for more.
A position on the small council, maybe. Though that might be stretching it.
That might be too much. But think bigger, for sure. Bigger than closing a fighting pit.
All right. But with that, with this new information given to them, the twins do find Aegon just sleeping under that row of candles and drag his ass out. Aegon, of course...
Yeah, so was Aegon just hung over this whole time, sleeping under there?
Probably.
Fair enough. We've all been there.
Every once in a while, right?
Every once in a while.
I remember when I got...
every weekend.
Yeah, I remember when I got so fucked up, I passed out at church and just, like, slept under the chairs.
I'm assuming he didn't pass out there. I'm assuming the White Worm, like, put him there.
Okay. Now, we get to this next little bit, where Arik is walking out... I don't know which one's which. Is walking out with Aegon. And Kristen just, like, walks up, draws the sword, like, oh, I'm sorry about this. And it's like, oh, shit, now we gotta fight. It's like,
right, so now we have two random dudes, not dressed in any distinguishing outfits, fighting in the streets.
yes. And
nobody bats an eye.
nobody gets the gold cloaks or the city watch. They just let these two fight. Especially while over yonder, you see the very distinguishable princes fighting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting situation.
And there's not many people around, at least that they show, which I don't know how likely that is at the entrance to the fucking sept, but sure, there's not many people around. But, like, the people who are around just kind of go, whoa, they're fighting.
Yeah.
Don't really do anything.
Not just that, there is like a scene as Aemond is manhandling Aegon, and we just see
there's like,
and we see in the background people are just walking, like not even stopping to watch the shit that's going on. They're just keep on walking.
Like, oh, the prince is fighting out in front of the sept. Another Tuesday.
So yeah, I don't like this in any shape or form. And I remember you said that you didn't think the fight was that unjustified. Are you going to try and defend this here?
No, I mean, it's definitely stupid. I just don't think it's, like, one of the worst scenes in the episode.
Oh, no. Oh, we're in complete agreement. It's not the worst scene. It's still a shit scene, though. The only other thing we should comment on is that the other twin didn't join into the fight. And that's obviously like, nah, Aegon's not right.
Yeah. Which is probably correct. That twin's probably correct.
Yeah, definitely. And then we get to
Otto writing a letter.
And the two of them have their little argument on how best to proceed with this, and it's the same as kind of the small council meeting. Otto wants to go a murdering, and Alicent does not.
Right. Which is a little odd. It's a little odd that Alicent is reluctant to murder, because I thought we had established she was willing to murder for her kids.
At least stab a kid's eye out.
At least stab a kid's eye out. And she had a conversation with Larry's later in that episode where she basically told him she would be taking him up on his services at some point in the future. So and his services are murder, let's be honest.
I mean, that was the big thing. He killed his brother and father.
Yeah, like he said he's basically willing to kill people for her. So, again, I think this scene is trying to play off of the dinner. She doesn't want to... She's a changed woman because the princess gave her a toast.
Yeah, and she's only doing this because Viserys... misunderstanding. Betsy! Okay, maybe it's not that easy to ignore it anymore.
No, it's really not.
It didn't even last an episode. Okay, so they have their little back and forth, but that's about it. Not a whole lot to delve into.
I mean, Alicent seems to think she's won something by getting to Aegon first, which again, I'd like to reiterate, why the fuck do they think they can control Aegon?
They haven't been able to for the past, 26 years at this point.
Yeah. And then, this is the biggest ping-pong, flip-flop character inconsistency I was talking about earlier. She goes straight from the scene where she's talking about how she's not willing to murder to get what she wants, to the scene with Larys, where she is very much willing to murder to get what she wants.
Well, maybe it's murdering different people. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, maybe... Like, I'm still not trying to, like, justify it, but maybe this, like, turn is she's not considering using Larys to murder Rhaenyra and her children. She's considering murdering other people. Like her dad.
Not her dad, just the White Worm, I thought.
Maybe the White Worm?
I assumed they were talking about murdering the White Worm this whole time. But the other thing is, through the weird foot fetish shit in this scene, we can infer that they have done this a number of times.
Yes.
They do not exchange a single word about the foot fetish shit. She knows what needs to be done to get Larys to kill for her. She has clearly been using him to kill people at least a few times. Why the fuck in the last scene was she saying she wasn't willing to murder?
Like I said, I think that is specifically in regards to Rhaenyra and her kids because she still has that little bit of positive memory from her versus others.
Which is also bullshit.
I will also say that she only, like, shows her feet to get information out of him. For all we know, she might have to, like, actually put some movement into it if she wants someone dead.
Well, she does, like, change her pose to get him to kill in this scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he doesn't kill anyone. So I think it's like, maybe...
Yes, he absolutely friggin' does. There's an arson scene later in the episode.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I think I just blanked on that shit.
Yeah, he commits a little bit of arson.
Yeah, after his quick little jerk off to the feet.
Yeah, he jerks off to the feet. Like, she knows I let him jerk off to my feet and he kills for me. But she's against murder.
But before we get to the arson, we have a little bit of Pan seeing everyone, but the most important one is seeing Rhaenys being rescued by Eric. Or Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Eric with an E, I believe. And the sneaky Kingsguard decides to wear his armor.
Yeah, I thought that was odd. Especially considering he wasn't wearing his armor for, like, the entire rest of the episode. Why did he put his armor on to then, like, break her out?
Oh, you're right. Okay, so yeah, you're right. So the arson scene, like, just kind of flew by so fast that I didn't connect the dots.
Yeah. But on the arson scene, I would like to say we don't see the White Worm die, so she's not dead.
No, definitely not.
Which, that arson scene's also a little odd. Like, a whole ass building's on fire and there's nobody, like, making a ruckus. Like, that fire didn't just start, despite the fact that the guy's just walking away from it. The whole building is, like, in flames.
Yeah. Also, now that I think about it, like, Alicent being okay to kill the White Worm, that seems a little off. Like, a little jumping the gun, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, why would she even want to kill the White Worm?
Yeah, like, maybe it's because the White Worm's informing to her father, but, like, you talk to the White Worm. Try and get the White Worm on your side.
Like your father is still very much mostly on your side, so killing one of his main informants
It's just shooting
might not be your best move.
And it's just shooting yourself in the foot.
Like, just because you don't agree 100% doesn't mean you need to go fucking postal on him.
You both agree who should sit the Iron Throne. That's the most important part.
Right?
But we kind of continue on, and after the whole torching, we see the Kingsguard and Rhaenys continue to walk around very inconspicuously.
Uh-huh.
But then
very inconspicuously.
They're just, like, swept up in the crowd as the guards and soldiers are literally just, like, herding everyone to the crowning ceremony.
Yeah. And, of course, they're split up by the crowd, because that's how crowds work.
Mm-hmm. But then we get
if you're two characters in a crowd in a TV show, you have to get split up.
Yeah. Yeah, because despite everyone going one way, for some reason you guys end up in opposite directions.
Yeah.
But with that, we get Alicent and Aegon, and so she's telling, like, yeah, nah, Viserys, like, really wanted you to be king, and Aegon doesn't even believe that shit.
Yeah, Aegon knows that's horseshit.
And a part of me thinks, like, even if Alicent believes this, she's got to know that nobody's going to believe her.
Yeah. Like, why even bother trying to act so honest about it, you know?
Yeah.
Which, that's in my favorite scene, when she's talking with Rhaenys, like, she even says, like, it's the truth, but I don't give a shit if you believe me. Which is, like, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand her saying that.
Yeah. With that said, with, like, the talk between Aegon and Alicent, for some reason it seems like her presenting the dagger, like, convinces him?
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
Like, why, Aegon?
Like, what even... That's the same, like, prophecy dagger, right?
Yeah.
Like, isn't that the dagger that, like, Arya uses to kill the Night King? Or something like that?
Yes. Same exact blade.
Yeah, so what is the importance of that here? It's just a Valyrian steel knife for them, right?
Yep. Especially...
None of them even know the fucking prophecy.
At all.
The closest one to knowing is Alicent, and she completely misread that shit.
Yep, and she doesn't even know what kind of connection the prophecy has with the dagger if she even recognized the prophecy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't... But, you know, it's a Valyrian steel blade.
Nigga's about to get a whole-ass Valyrian steel sword.
Yeah. Okay. Do I need to censor that?
Maybe so.
We'll decide after we're done recording. But anyways, continuing on. Because I'm only going to be, like, censoring your name. Anyways, we continue back to, like, people being heard, and, you know, it's like a mosh pit. And it's like, I swear, the gold cloaks are, like, beating people to get them into the ceremony.
Yeah.
And the ceremony is being held at the Dragon Pit.
Definitely an odd place for it.
Well, it has happened, like, in the books, and the reason being by the Greens is they actually picked the Dragon Pit because it is a fairly defensible position, and they wanted to make sure that no black loyalists could interfere with the ceremony. And so that's their motivation for doing it in the Dragon Pit. So I have to assume that their motivation is the same in the show, only this time it clearly bites them in the ass.
Yeah, it seems like if you're going to do it in the Dragon Pit, you should check that the person who has the biggest dragon in the Dragon Pit is still in their room before you get going, you know?
Yeah. Well, that would be Aemond with Vhagar.
Oh. I guess that's fair enough. The second biggest dragon in the Dragon Pit.
Actually, I'm joking. So yeah. So we have and this is like something I've been hearing, but like Otto announces that Aegon is the king, and we have people like kind of cheering and applauding. I heard some people were surprised that everyone was that nobody was like cheering for Rhaenyra, but this is King's Landing, where the Greens have the most influence, power, and support. So it makes sense why the small folk in King's Landing would still be supportive of Aegon over Rhaenyra. Once you get like to the other ends of Westeros, it's a bit different. But directly in King's Landing, where the Greens have all the power and swords and daggers, yeah, it's cheering for Aegon.
Well, and the show has been pretty clear that the people are going to want the firstborn son to be king the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little bit odd that Otto doesn't say how Viserys died. But maybe that's normal. I don't know.
I would imagine.
Like, I would just think he would be like, Viserys died peacefully in his sleep last night, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I'd imagine like one could make certain assumptions. I'm assuming that the king's health was fairly well known, especially in King's Landing.
Yeah, but especially since you're also claiming that he changed who the heir was at the last moment, I feel like just trying to clarify that he wasn't assassinated.
Like, we held the dagger to his throat, and when he named Aegon, we slit it.
Yeah, I don't know. Not that big a deal.
Alrighty. Continuing on, though, we got the whole, like, you know, classic swords falling behind the king as he walks up to get his crown. Goes about how you would presume. He gets the crown, and we do get, like, a little kind of look back to Rhaenys every once in a while. Like, there's this one kind of specific moment where she kind of looks away, and I assume that's where she goes to sneak off to the dragon.
Yeah.
Which, well, I'll wait for that particular scene. The Septon gets the crown. Everything is, like, going great. All the blessings and whatnot. She sneaks away to get the dragon.
Which, quick lore question, where are the new gods from?
Oh, the new gods? The new gods are from the Andals.
Where's the Andals?
Alright, so, long ago, there was Westeros. And on Westeros were the Children of the Forest and the Giants. They fought each other sometimes, but eventually, through the Arm of Dorne, because there used to be a landmass that connected Dorne and Essos, through that arm, the First Men came. And the First Men had, like, bronze weapons, I believe. And they fucked up the Children of the Forest and the Giants. And pretty much, like, took over the entire continent. But there was, like, some sort of peace between the two, and the First Men eventually adopted the Old Gods. Then, the Andals invade. Now, the Andals are also from Essos, but, like, more northern. And they come in bringing the seven-pointed star and the seven religion as a whole. And they pretty much take over everything except the north. And that's where Andals come from.
Okay. And then, so the Targaryens would worship the new gods then?
So the Targaryens, when they first came to Westeros, they actually believed in a different religion, different from the old gods, the new gods, and R'hllor. They had their own kind of Valyrian gods.
And they didn't try to impose those. They didn't try to make those more standard or anything like that.
No, Aegon the Conqueror actually converted to the 7-pointed star. I mean, how legitimately he converted, is up for debate and whatnot. Especially since there are still instances of Targaryens having Valyrian weddings. We see this with Maegor the Cruel having Valyrian weddings, and that's the son of Aegon the Conqueror. And there's also in the show, Rhaenyra and Daemon have what seems to very much be a Valyrian wedding. So, how much it's probably mostly for show, because if they didn't take the religion, it would just be more difficult for them to hold power over the people.
Fair enough.
With that said, the whole issue of incest still pretty much made them have an entire bloody war with the faith. But that's a story for another time. So now this is something I find kind of weird. Why does Kristen crown Aegon?
I also thought that was weird.
Yeah,
I just assumed it was something the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard does.
No, not at all. It really should have been the Septon who crowned Aegon. It seems weird to pass that over to even the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard.
Yeah, fair enough. That if you say it's not what normally happens, then I believe you. I have no clue.
Yeah. But then we get Aegon holding Blackfire and raising it and just fist pumping. The crowd goes wild, and you see him starting to enjoy what's happening.
Right, we're watching him get drunk on power in real time.
Mm-hmm. Hey, this ain't that bad.
Yeah.
And that, when he's holding his hands out, that's the perfect point to end the episode, as far as I'm concerned. But
then we would still have questions about what happened with Rhaenys.
I don't give a shit. I can make assumptions that she snuck out and got away. But no, we have her busting through the earth of a fire pit of a dragon dome that's designed to hold dragons, killing untold amount of people, hundreds at the very least, likely.
Hundreds for sure.
Stomping around, swiping and fucking everything up. I question her needing to do this at all, because assumably these big ass dragons don't bust through the ground every time they want to get out.
Yeah, you would think there would be normal exits.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there's this secret. I don't know the layout of the dragon pit specifically. I'm not saying there's some secret caves in the very bottom that she could have flown away or anything. But there were less destructive ways, and this just, and this is so much worse when I hear what the writers and whatnot are talking about it. I didn't watch it, but I did go on Reddit, which is a reliable source, as we all know. And
yes,
apparently, the writer for this episode also wrote episode 6, which was the episode with Laena getting burnt by Viserion.
Ah.
So she doesn't have the best track record, as far as I'm concerned, in her quality. But this is supposed to be the moment where we see her and decide, yes, she should have been queen, apparently.
Oh, so does this writer also think Daenerys was a fantastic ruler?
You know what? I guarantee you,
Daenerys just did the same thing but bigger.
She probably wrote one of those BuzzFeed articles. Daenerys did nothing wrong.
When did Rhaenys... This is the smallest issue in the scene. When did Rhaenys put armor on?
I'm assuming she slipped it on, when, Eric, went to get her. So she was like, hold
Yeah,
up, I
I
need
guess
a
that'd be
change.
the only time.
That's like the only real justification. Another option is maybe her armor was with the dragon?
I had that thought as well, but she changes into armor awfully quick if that's the case.
Yeah, fairly quick. But who knows, maybe Aeon was just pumping his sword for an hour.
Yeah, maybe so. And so then her and her dragon are looking at all of her enemies gathered in one tight little bunch. So she's already done it. She's already done the stupid thing of busting through the floor. Now she can fulfill the one purpose that these actions could possibly serve and torch all of her enemies at once.
Okay. So now, obviously, my main issue comes from the whole busting from the ground, because I think that's just dumb. Now, but you obviously take issue with her not killing. So now I will say that I am slightly more okay with it. The reason being is kinslaying in Westeros is a big no-no. That's like one of the big taboos that you just never do in Westeros. Because there is nothing more accursed than a kinslayer.
Well, except for people do it all the goddamn time.
I mean, yeah, but everyone who's ever done it is, like, lambasted as a degenerate, horrible human being. Any kind of, like, popularity you have evaporates.
I'm sure Larys feels that way when he's jacking off to the queen's feet.
Yeah, but only Alicent knows that.
Yeah, come on. People know.
Yeah. So, like...
Dude wasn't even at his father and son's funeral, or father and brother's funeral.
I will say, though, that even then, I find that whole situation very interesting, because I feel like there's no way she can believe that peace is actually an option. I've seen a lot of people defend, like, nah, she didn't kill them all because she still thinks that peace is an option. She can't see the future. Bitch, you gotta be as blind as Corlys to think that she doesn't know war's coming. Does she think that the Greens...
Everybody has known war is coming since fucking Aegon was born.
Mm-hmm. Ain't no way you can justify... I also heard, like, another thing. I don't know if it's, like, from the same writer or if it's, like, one of the two showrunner guys, but they also said that her deciding not to torch them all was her saying, this isn't my war, which is unbelievable levels of retardation.
It's absolutely her war.
Because
she's very much a part of it.
Because guess what? 2 of her grandkids are the child of someone who's married to the claimant, unless she plans on just letting her kids do all the fighting. I got a headache.
Yeah, so in my mind, the only reason she would bust through the floor like she did
was to
kill everyone.
Yeah.
So the fact that she busted through the floor and then didn't kill everyone, it's like, what? That scene is the definition of spectacle for spectacle's sake.
Mm-hmm.
No substance. They just wanted a big, twist ending for the episode, and they came up with this horse shit.
Yeah. And there we go. That is the entire episode. I think I'm willing to say that it's the worst episode.
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to be confident about it without at least going through my past notes, but definitely my feeling right now is that it's the worst episode.
I mean, I'm just, like, thinking back, because, like, all the other episodes, we constantly would talk about how decent they were, and then there would just be, like, this one really shit scene. This episode, we didn't really have any praise for it.
That's true. Yeah, you know what the problem is? Viserys isn't in it. Because that would be the one constant. I could always praise Viserys for being fucking acted so well. But now he's gone. So I can't praise that anymore.
You're right. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. This is it.
Because episode 3 would be the other contender for worst episode in my opinion. But Viserys is fantastic in that episode, so I can't hate it too much.
I don't know if I would call episode 3 like the worst or the second worst. I think I would give it to the 6th episode, or 6 or 7. No, wait, 7 was the really good. Wait, we're on episode 9. 8 was the really good one. Yeah, 7 or 6, because I wasn't a fan of 6 or 7, but a lot of my issues with 7 is just in regards to Corley's making no sense. And my issues with 6 is, like, the stupid, like, abortion, murder, suicide thing by Dragonfire.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, overall, though, episode 9 takes the cake in being the worst. What was episode 3?
That's the one where Daemon fights the pirates.
Okay, yeah, but I can somewhat ignore the stupidity of the pirate fight.
The stupidity of the pirate fight's part of it, but I felt like the princess was really awful in that episode.
Oh, right, and she kissed the boar or whatever?
Yeah, she kisses the boar, and it doesn't kill her, and then she sees the heart, the white heart. And
yeah, you're right.
Proof that the hunter should be king.
Damn,
and all that.
Viserys was carrying the show on his broken back, and now that he's gone, I think it might be over.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
The only other character who has, like, an ounce of the charisma Viserys had is Daemon.
Yeah, I was going to say, this episode has no Daemon, who is, like, definitely the second best character.
The only way this, Matt Smith, it was Matt Smith and Patty Constantine were holding it, but with Patty gone, I don't know if Matt Smith can do it all on his own.
No, I don't think he can.
There will be new characters next season, so maybe, but they're not going to be as prominent, so it's all up to Matt Smith at this point.
Oh, what a task.
Oh, man. But I think that's pretty much it. Any last-minute comments?
I think I've said my word.
Alrighty. Well, as always, thanks to everyone who was able to make it to the end. Thank you very much, DJ Fella, for joining us. And, I think this might be the shortest stream that we had. We're getting better at these. Either that or, we just need to speed through this shit.
Yeah, I don't think short means better. But...
but with all that squared away, have a good night, and see you all next time.